Hey everybody, it's Dan here from SAP UK and I'm on with my third or fourth or fifth podcast today. I'm pretty sure we're not on the fifth because I don't really remember doing that many, but it has been like quite a few weeks now, so um, could be. I'm pretty sure it's the fourth or maybe like the third real one because I'm sure that the first one was only like 15 seconds or something like that. So I'm Dan from SAP UK and I'm here to prevent suicide and I will do this in any means possible. So normally previously I was a blogger and a vlogger. So I used to make videos and blogs in regards to suicide prevention. Now I've kind of taken it to the podcast because a lot of people probably listen easier than what they watch, but I'm actually making a video with this one today. So I am slightly and slowly upgrading. And my previous podcast, I think I will do these again. So once I've completed, like, say, 10 podcasts and I've got topics on each of them, I probably will go over each of the subjects again because I think as you get older and as you learn more, you kind of like open yourself up to understanding. And obviously, I'm learning more, so each episode will have something that I can add to it. And plus, they were my first ones as well, and it was with a different podcast kit and stuff. So they are like slightly different, and I'd like to keep them all to some form of like high quality because I do believe that I have something good to say, and I am good at preventing suicide. So if I help anybody, I'd like to do that properly. So, today on the fourth or fifth episode, I am going to be talking about depression and suicidal thoughts and how depression has a hold over suicidal thoughts and tendencies. And I think like depression is a really difficult movement for someone to kind of enjoy because it's a brain stop, if you will. It's like your brain goes, nope, I don't want to work today. I don't want to do anything today. And that's technically like the depression. So if depression was an action, it'd be like a stop sign, which rightfully so it should be because depression is not an easy process for a person to engage with. So anyone who's fighting with depression, hats off to you for still being here. Well done. Um, I myself struggle with long term depression and I've found it very difficult over the years. So I do kind of resonate with a lot of people who are also struggling with depression and suicidal thoughts that may come with that. Now, depression can kind of stem from anywhere. I have to kind of like relate back to myself because obviously I've undergone this myself. And I think in like podcasts, I was kind of like listening back to a few podcasts and quite a lot of people kind of bring their stories into it. And I've never really been a person that goes, oh, all eyes on me and listen to what I've got to say. Like I'm quite closed off and quite reserved in how I inform people of my kind of like nature and stuff. And then there's been like times where I've not really told people who I am and things, and I try to keep what I do to myself only because I'm doing a bit of market research, really. So what I find is that once I kind of tell people that I'm the founder of SAP UK, that they kind of look at me a little bit differently. So I kind of like to keep that to myself, and then eventually people kind of know themselves what I do and stuff. And plus it's not something that I'm kind of like I'm not like a show off or anything like that. I wouldn't show off my things. I've never really been raised like that. I was in different grounds upon when being raised, so I'm just a bit different as opposed to that kind of sense. So there's been a time before when I went for some food and me and the person I was with met another couple and we was talking and they was like, oh, what do you do? And I was like, oh, I just prevent suicide. Oh, that's really good. And then this person afterwards was like, why don't you actually tell them like what you actually do? And I was like, oh, it's just one of them, isn't it? Like as long as like that person is safe, like what it doesn't matter, does it? And they know that I'm like suicide prevention, always going to be suicide prevention. I always say this, like literally, I am always going to be suicide prevention. I'll never deter from it. I'll never, ever, ever will do. And then I've got like my ADHD too, which really fuels like this suicide prevention side because I get really good ideas and stuff. Anyway, so we're talking about depression and how it affects people and how you can kind of support yourself when you are in like in a depressive episode. So I have to talk about myself, which is something that I don't really like doing. I kind of like I learnt the moral of ask more questions, talk about yourself less, and that's one way that you can learn to be selfless is ask more questions about other people and don't really kind of talk about yourself too much. I learned that. is one of my strong morals. I'll always ask questions because I like to know and be interested in people and stuff like that. And I find that a lot of people are really interested, especially in like this day and age. Everyone's so different. Roll back to like episode 2 or 3 when I was talking about individual differences. I just had a quick drink there. I don't know if that was heard, but if it was, I'll just like snap that bit out of the podcast. I can edit them, you see, but I don't tend to like editing them because I want to keep it like real. And plus, as I said, I'm going to do them all at some point again. Just to kind of make them maybe a little bit more professional because as like I am very unprofessional. I'm not very unprofessional. I'm actually quite professional in a lot of areas, but um, there's so many aspects where I'm not, and I love being unprofessional anyway. Anyway, so we're talking about depression. So depression can start at any age. It can start in childhood. It can start in teenage years. It can start in adulthood. It can start as you're elderly. It's kind of like a brain movement where your body is so deflated, no motivation, no hope, no it's just not happy. So depressive state can be a kind of where you don't want to get out of bed all day. You want to like mope around. You don't want to look after yourself. You don't want to look after anybody. And this is like this is depression. Depression's actually really painful, like for a person to endure because um it does come out of nowhere. It does kind of like debilitate you and stuff like that. So when depression starts as a child, you can normally see like a child that is like sorry, 1 second. So yeah, so depression can start at like any age, and it kind of like starts at well, it can when it starts in childhood, you'll kind of like see a very quiet, reserved, in their own bubble child. And to be fair, it can actually like go on the other end. So you can get a child that acts out a lot and doesn't really um understand how to be good and would then be classed as like a bad child in the classroom. But like depression as a child can be noted via a couple of signs. So they'd be like not talking or oversharing, feelings and speaking of like hopelessness, like not being good enough, like talking themselves down, like avoiding contact. There is it's actually, I'm so sorry, it's kind of like slowing me down a little bit because I don't like pre-plan these episodes. I kind of just go as I am. So I'm kind of just thinking, you know what, I'm just going to talk about this and just thinking about like a depressed child is actually quite sad because a lot of children, they don't actually speak up and say that they're sad because they don't really understand how to. So a depressed child can be um, within many different natures. I guess it's kind of um, speak of that you'd have to go and sit with that child and maybe ask them a few questions and see if they are okay. But so when I like endured, I've always, as far as I've known, I've had depression, and it's just like over the years and stuff. And how I've known that I've had long term depression is that even when I'm in like my most stable and happy moments, people will always ask me if I'm okay. Are you okay? Yeah, I'm fine. Are you sure? Yeah, I'm totally sure. Are you okay? All right, you don't look okay. Um, oh, that's just me. That's just me and the way I look like. And this, like, not in this and like this last like few years when I've been going through an episode of like manic and stuff like that, I kind of noted that I haven't really been far from this personality like ever. I've always been kind of like reserved, isolated in solitude, on my own, always healing from something or someone or myself or and I'm constantly having to pick up myself. Like I'm constantly having to treat myself like I'm not well. So in my like depressive modes, I kind of just like write the day off, and that'll be me, because I can't physically do anything, and it's my brain's just gone stop, and it's like told me that I can't make any moves from now on. So you kind of have to just like listen to it. And depression can be really hard because it doesn't make you want to do anything. Like I don't want to do anything when I'm depressed. I'd rather just stay in darkness and heal. And that's what a lot of people tend to find with like depression is that you can't just turn it off. It's not something that you just go, right, I'm done with depression now, let's go. Let's be happy. It doesn't actually work like that. It should work like that. It should work like that, but it doesn't. And I think like a lot of people really struggle with depression is because it's recurring. It's not something that like happens and then goes. So with my depression, I've found that I'm always like kind of one set mellow mood, which is just a flat, like numb mood. But then when I'm in like my major episodes, it's when I'm like my emotions are heightened. So I'm stressed, I'm crying, I'm tired, I'm exhausted, I'm cancelling. I cancel often anyway, but I'm cancelling more so, and I'm just not doing anything, and I'm not reaching out, I'm not doing my reach out. So I'm just kind of in my own like reserve. And that's another thing I could tell that like so over the years, I think I have got better, got so much better that I wouldn't be doing these major reach outs to the potential that I am if I wasn't getting better. I'd be more getting more reserved. And I think it's a lot of me getting better is the understanding that I've had with my depression, how it affects me, how it can come out of nowhere, how it takes like X, Y, Z triggers and I'm kicked off, or not kicked off, but I'm set off on my downward spiral. And over the years, I kind of understood what to avoid, what to not avoid, who to stay near, who to not go near, who I'm able to go to for support, who I'm not able to go to support to go to for support. And I think like over the kind of like years and the understanding of depression, and you'll find this yourself if you are struggling with depression, that understanding is the key to healing, and understanding is the key to moving on and moving forward and moving past these depressive thoughts, because depressive thoughts, as they are more recurrent and as they come around and spin around so often, they get harder and harder. Like the older that I got and the more depressed that I was getting with myself, the more I found that it was getting more difficult because I was getting older. And I think as you get older, you kind of think, I'm getting wiser. Like I'm older than what I was last year. I'm older than who I was. I'm 10 years older than 21-year-old me. And you get this kind of like movement as you get older, you should be more wise and you should be more together and have things like set in place and stuff like that. But that is not the case. I think we've been like kind of set up with like the generations and stuff, and watching people kind of go from being a small child to an adult to like professionally watching people like being successful and stuff kind of in, envisions that as you get older you should be this certain way, and it's not actually the case, because anything can happen in this lifetime. Anything can happen to any of us. You don't have to be like a certain you don't have to be like a certain person to have to go through something traumatic. You don't have to have like the grounds that you have to go through something traumatic. Like depression can come to any of us, and depression. Oh, I haven't even touched basically like where like what depression is. So there's like different stages of depression. You get like short term depression, which means which lasts like say 2 weeks, and this can be from like a life event or something bad that's happened that's just knocked you down that you have to just process. And sometimes when processing like certain information, especially if it's traumatic, um, it can lead to depression. So obviously you can go to a football match and watch the game win, and something might happen at the football match that's like a positive, and you have to process this. It's going to take a little bit of your energy, but it's not going to send you into depression because it's not a traumatic event. Whereas if you went to like a football match and you witnessed something that was traumatic, this would then potentially have the potential to start depression off, because you have to process something that's bad. So you have to process something, and this takes a little bit more of your energy because the bad process, you kind of process it to try and figure out to fix it. So let me just give an example. So when I was like trying to process what happened with Brian, trigger warning quickly. If so, Brian took his own life by noose, and it was something that me and another person had to witness. So we had to like take him down. We had to go through all the process of removing everything, and obviously the bits and bats that are after. So this is a process that I have to endure, and it took me like 167 days to stop seeing that image, like straight up. It stopped me from seeing that. Well, it took me that long to stop seeing it. And this was my process. So I had to process this, but I had to process it in a negative way. So I had to try and fix it. So in my brain, I was processing it to try and think out Or if I did this, maybe this wouldn't have happened. If this would have happened, maybe this wouldn't have happened. If I would have got there 10 minutes before, this wouldn't have happened. And there was a lot of like, there were a lot of ends that I was trying to meet, and this was a negative process because I had to keep touching base with the process, well, with the event to try and understand, to try and heal myself. And it was really, really difficult. So the processes are like different. So when you have to process something good, you don't necessarily have to put too much energy into it because if um saw something good, so I went to my son's school sports day and he won. I processed that. I thought about that probably about 10 times maybe afterwards because I was very happy. And that didn't take much energy because it was a happy process. But still now I think about that and I'm still super happy. But when I'm processing what happened with Brian, it takes a bit more of my energy and it's a bit more sad. So if I think about that day, it kind of like makes me a little bit more unsettled. So from that kind of event, that took me a very, very, very long time to have to try and like sit and process this because nobody wants to have to sit and process that to try and fix it when you can't fix it. And that is going to take a lot of energy. And a lot of negative traits can take a lot of energy. So, if, for example, you lose your house, or you lose your job, or you lose your partner, or you lose your friend, or you lose something that's like of value for you, um, it's going to take some processing because you're going to have to try and, especially if you haven't got any answers, you're going to have to try and process this to find the answers for yourself. And this is really, really difficult because when you start trying to like have to get answers and you have to try and figure out what happened for X, Y, and Z, you don't necessarily know the right answer, so you can't get the right answer. So you're going to be processing this for a very, very long time. And that's why it's always good to reach out for support too. So if you are struggling with like anything or any kind of movement, you do need to reach out for support because it can be difficult for an individual to try and process things on your own, especially if you haven't got the answers. So I didn't go for support after Brian. I think I mentioned that in another episode, and I had a lot of answers because in this process of like losing Brian, I lost like quite a lot of things at the same time. So I lost my job, my relationship, I lost some friends, and I lost my business. That's kind of job, but it was weren't a job, it was my business. So it was something that I've been working on for years and years and years. And I lost all that. So it wasn't just a case of having to deal with the loss of Brian and what I saw. I had to like kind of deal with all the rest of it. And I had to try and like understand why it was all breaking down and what happened with it all. But the reason why it was all breaking down was because I had PTSD and I was very, very stressed and I had literally no avenue, so I was absolutely chaotic. Oh, like even thinking back, and I said this on the last episode, thinking back and looking back to who I was back then, it's not even a scratch on who I am today. It's literally, I've never been that low in my whole life, and it's sad. It's very, very sad that I ended up getting to that point, but I think sometimes we all have to be at places where we don't want to be, but it's made me who I am today. I think I've said before that I've been through too much, so much, and I can literally support anybody with like anything. That's what I'm here for. I'm the best person to be suicide prevention. So yeah, so depression. So I was talking before I like went on a little bit of a rabbit hole. I have said previously that I'd do this as well. So due to like my ADHD traits, like I will go off down a little bit of a rabbit hole. So I was talking about like depressive disorders. So I haven't even said depressive disorders. So there's like different levels of depression. I'm not gonna like touch base on all of them, only because I'm not planning these episodes out. I'm kind of just speaking with what's from my mind. So the reason why I'm doing this podcast is so that I can utilize some of your hours. So if you do need a distraction from your suicidal thoughts and tendencies, you can listen to me. You can listen to me waffling on about suicide prevention. It's what it's here for. It's what I'm here for. I said this before. I'm for public benefit. So yeah, utilize me and what I'm gifting out to you. So yeah, so there's different kind of like stages of depression. So you can have like depressive episodes for like that last like 2 weeks, which it just happens when a traumatic event happens and you have to like kind of process it and you're using too much energy to process it. And it is recommended that if you are within any depressive state that you rest because not resting when you have depression can make it a lot worse, trust me. Well, everyone's different. Like a lot of people will say that keeping busy is um, is the best option, but you can keep busy, but as long as you're still processing. So it's all well and good keeping busy, but you have to still be processing what's going on inside your mind, because if you don't process and you push it to the back of your mind, whatever's happened, the traumatic event, it will come back. So you're kind of just like squashing it into a box, and you're squashing it, you're squashing it, you're squashing it, and then eventually, because subconsciously you're going to still be building in that box, the box is just going to explode, and you could end up in a worse position than what you were previously. So to process it as you are keeping busy, because I do agree keeping busy is so good for mental health, and it's so good for keeping you occupied, and so you're not sat in your own thoughts. But sometimes like you are need to be sat in your own thoughts just to be able to process situations. And also, if you are struggling with any processing, drop me an email and I will get back to you ASAP. Email is danielle@suicideapuk.co.uk. So, and then there is more prolonged periods of depression. So, there's persistent depressive disorder, which is something that I feel like I have. So, persistent depressive disorder is a depressive disorder that's lasted for 2 years or longer. And as far as I go back, I don't really know myself being any other kind of like person other than someone who like helped other people, stayed on their own, and was quite solitude and reserved. I don't remember being another person to that. But I think as this year's coming along, maybe I will get to see who I am as a person, which is always exciting because I'm in my angel numbers on. So I love these. So yeah, so there's a persistent depressive disorder. And then it's not only just the persistent depressive disorder, there's other types of depressive disorders too. So there's melancholia, I think that's how you pronounce it, I'm not 100% sure. But this is where it's prolonged and it's every day, and it's finalized with the content of death, if that makes sense. I think I've totally pronounced that wrong. So melancholia is where a person will always result to feelings of being better off not here anymore. And this is like the 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 final to the depressive disorder. So this is where ultimately a person is only happy and content if they are within understanding that they can not be here anymore. And then, as well as the persistent depressive disorder, the melancholia, if that's pronounced correctly, there is also major depressive disorder, which comes after 2 weeks, and it's every day feeling sad and hopelessness, no feelings, or there's a loss of engagement in activities, there's no like happy, and it's regardless of what what label it is, they're all still quite sad, um, quite difficult to comprehend. I think with my like depressive disorder, I found that I am much more settled than what I used to be, so that's good. And but I still will always find myself within like a depressive state. I'm not really like happy or overly um excitable about things generally. So and then with these other depressive disorders, they kind of come with postnatal depression, antenatal depression. So these are obviously with extra hormones that may fluctuate in. And I think it's different. It's different between men and women, children and adults. Everyone, it's different between person. It's person dependent, isn't it? Everybody experiences depression in different ways. So if you haven't experienced depression, then I guess it's good. It's yeah, obviously it's good. I was trying to say it's like benefit for you, but I didn't want people with depression to kind of feel like I was awarding people without depression, if you will. Oh, that doesn't make sense. But depression, regardless of its format, is quite tough for a person because it's it's kind of like a day decider. So if you're within a depressive mode, you aren't going to be 100% yourself at all. And I think when engaging with people, especially if they have some like depressive uh, they have some depressive traits, that just to be kind and just be caring and thoughtful, and just think, oh, this person who's already with depression obviously needs some kindness, because a lot of people with depression are depressed because of another person or another individual or some form of event. So it's to ensure that life isn't as hard for them and that they are being supported and they are accepted as they are because um it's like on Winnie the Pooh. He always depressed, isn't he? He's always sad and he's always depressed, but they all still invite him along and Pooh and Piglet and Bunny Rabbit. I can't remember his name, the Bunny Rabbit, but they're always very like, oh, come on, Eeyore. And even though he's slow and even though he is like sad and always speaks like poorly of himself, they always still accept him and they always still have fun without him. And he is still okay to have fun and he does still have happy moments. It's just that the sadness is a little bit more of the moments than what the happy are. But it's okay because people and Eeyore will heal. Maybe not Eeyore because I think that's Eeyore's characteristic. I don't think Eeyore will not be depressed now. Um, so depression is difficult. Oh my god, I'm going to pause that bit because that was ridiculous. Oh, I have to cut that bit out because I don't want that bit in because that is so like, oh, you got everything else to say kind of thing. I just didn't know what to kind of, what it meant to say is, I was meant to say that depression is something that we can't escape from. That's what I was trying to like move on. It's not something, well, it is difficult anyway. I just didn't want to put it like, my ADHD though. So, depression is difficult for a lot of people, and it's good to know how to support people. So it's always like always try and like involve them or invite them. Don't make them feel left out. Don't make them feel like an alien or that they aren't welcome or that the place would be better without them because this is only going to fuel to a depressive mind. And with depression, there are kind of like um different movements and different causes for depression. So there's obviously, not obviously, but there's childhood depression. So a lot of adults are depressed because of what happened within the childhood. And this can kind of like set in stone. So what I believe has happened with mine and what I've kind of come to the understanding over the last like year or so is that with my depressive state that I've never really known any different from. It's from when I was a child, so I was quite a quiet, reserved, depressed child, and I would always like hide away in my room and draw. And I'd always hide away. I'd always hide away, and I've got like a really bad trait now for running away as well. Not running away, so if like someone wants me and they see me, and I'm like, oh, I don't want to see them. I want to run away. Like not that kind of sense. I mean, like if there's anything that's distressing me to the point of no return, if you will, I'll literally just close it off and move away. So that running away means that I'll go and not come back, which is actually really good because it means that like I've got like attachment disorders where I get so attached to people, but then I've also got detachment disorder where I can detach from someone in seconds or something that I'm really good at detaching myself. But I believe that this is a trait that I learned at a young age. So I've always found with like my depression as I've thought about it over the years, is that it's always been there with me and it's always been quite like strongly with my personality, but it's always been like quite settled. I've never really like had too many depressive episodes, so um I was gonna say I haven't cried this week, but I don't know. So I'm probably crying like once or twice a week now. But so when I was like emotional this week, it was because something good happened, and I was like, oh my God. So I heard like a story, and let me tell you the story quickly. So I was just, I met a friend, and he was telling me that he had another friend, and he knew this like couple for probably like 15 years, and they looked like a really happy couple wife and husband, obviously. And then what he came to understand was that the husband was actually abusing their wife. He was hitting her and things, and my friend didn't know about this. And when he found out, he was absolutely disgusted because he didn't see this side of the person. He felt stupid because he didn't see this side. All he saw was a happy married couple, and he thought it was a really, really good couple. Anyway, what he ended up doing because obviously he knew about what was going on was he took the husband out of the house so that the wife could leave. So he said he tricked the husband and said, "Oh, we'll go out for some food and do this and blah, 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 blah." And because he did that, the wife was able to leave the house and get out of the relationship and get away from home and get away from her. And when I heard this, I was like, I was so emotional because you just don't hear someone being that kind. You just don't hear someone like going out of the way to help somebody, even though it would have gone back on him in a negative way too. He still managed to do this. And that for me was just like, wow, we need more people like you because you don't hear of that. And there are so many people like this who help people with depression because obviously the wife was getting depressed and in that kind of situation like domestic violence, you will be getting depressed. If anyone is struggling with domestic violence, we do have someone on the SAP UK team who is specialising in domestic violence. So if you need any support on this, get the contact details off the website. It's Hardy you're looking for. And yeah, she's specialising in this. So I don't want anyone who's listening to this podcast to be going through something like that and not able to speak about it. You are welcome to speak about it. You can always message me as well if you are struggling, engaging anywhere else. My email again is danielle@suicideapuk.co.uk. So I hope everyone is okay today. My movement on speaking about depression has obviously been um, influenced from my own depression because over the years it's been really difficult for me. And over the years it's been difficult for other people as well to kind of like engage with me because by the looks of me, it's almost like no one can make me happy. And the amount of people that have said that I said previously, going, I can't make you happy, I can't make you happy, I can't make you happy. Little did they know that I was super happy. I just didn't appear that way. And it's really difficult. And I guess like ADHD has depressive traits too. So with ADHD comes like yes, come like ADHD. You can get like so many negative traits that come with ADHD, and one of them is depression. So the way that ADHD works with depression is that ADHD people have bursts of energy, and the way that we need to look at energy in our mind is that they are like little bits of boxes or silos, like jars, whatever. And you've got like, so that's full to the top. And with an ADHD man, when you're flying through loads of stuff, you're burning all that energy. You're burning it all. So that's lots of happy energy being used. And then the next day, you haven't got any energy and there's nothing for us to work off because we haven't got that boom or that oomph and we need that 100% go, 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 go for an ADHD mind to be 100% involved. And when we use it all, that can then cause depressive traits. So, as well as like childhood trauma and childhood personality traits, ADHD traits, comes the depression. And for me, it's so difficult to work with this depression because I don't know how I'm going to be feeling that day. I don't know whether I'm going to be happy. I don't know whether I'm going to be like fed up. I don't know whether I'm going to be um, emotional. I don't know whether I'm going to be tired or exhausted or any other kind of trait because depression doesn't work like that. You don't really have a calendar or like a set time or anything like that something when the depression is going to come forward, it kind of just comes forward when it was. And hats off to everybody that is pushing through depression and sorry, and everybody who is like going about the day with depression and everybody who's okay but doesn't look okay. Like I see you, and I know how it feels to be okay but not look okay, and how stressful it is for other people to be with somebody with depression because with depression well, in my kind of cases, I am okay, and if I'm not okay, I will let somebody know. Like when I was within my suicidal thoughts again, I've safeguarded myself quite a lot. No, I safeguarded myself by 3 people. So I let 3 people know that I wasn't okay and that I had a plan. And these 3 people ensured that I was okay. So I managed to safeguard myself. And it's so important. I spoke about this on the last episode that you know how to safeguard yourself. You know how to um yeah, so that you know how to safeguard yourself. So that's in the last episode. I was trying to gonna touch base on the last episode, and I thought, well, it's not the last episode, is it? So you just have to kind of listen to that. But I'm thinking that anyone who listens to my podcast will probably listen to them periodically. Periodically, that's not the right word. I think you'd probably listen to them one after the other, maybe. But they're all different topics anyway, so they all have a different meaning. So the first one, I just did a quick video just so that people on Spotify could see me, and I was just doing a quick check-in, and that was actually recorded on my phone. It wasn't recorded on the podcast kit, so it was a separate upload, and then this next episode after that is individual differences, and then I've got the one after that, which is supporting someone who's suicidal, and then finally this one, depressive traits and suicidal thoughts. And what I did was I kind of put an open topic, I think, so that people could kind of suggest an episode. I think I was talking about childhood and suicidal thoughts, I think. And then that was one of the topics. But I haven't checked to see if anyone got back to me, and I kind of wanted to talk about depression. So I didn't want to even look to see if anyone had engaged with that so I could choose a topic. I wanted to just choose my own. Plus, I think depression is so important when understanding suicidal thoughts, because depression is debilitating, and the more often it occurs in somebody, the more often that these suicidal thoughts will get stronger. Because don't know if I didn't touch base on it. As you get older, you kind of expect it to be a bit more stable and settled. So as I enjoyed my suicidal thoughts this year, which was from major depression and life trauma, it kind of got worse. So the more that they were happening, the more that I would believe in them. So depressive, like a stable depression, is there should be like a disorder for that, because there's persistent depressive disorder, there's major depressive disorder, which is the feeling of hopelessness and stuff like that. But then there's what, because I don't feel hopeless. I don't feel like I've got a loss of engagement and a loss of activity and a loss of happy, but I don't feel hopeless. I have got motivation, I have got movement and stuff, but there's always a part of me that just feels like I'm fed up and I've had enough, kind of thing. And that's the depressive part that comes with me, that I'll always kind of go back to that movement of um like, what is this? What is this? Like I'll always kind of bounce back to that. But I'm still going to do my reach outs. I'm still going to always be chatting whether I'm depressed or not, because it's important for me to engage this way, especially for suicide prevention. I think a lot of people don't understand that suicide prevention is everybody's business, because it can happen at any moment to anybody. And this is what I'm trying to get across to everybody is, yeah, it's okay not supporting me and stuff like that. But what happens if someone you know really needs someone and you didn't support me, so they don't know to come to me, because I'm the best person for anybody who's suicidal. I really, really am. Not everybody. Not everybody will warm to me. Not everybody will like me, which is, I'm not after that at all anyway. I'm just after preventing suicide. But there will be some people who need me. There'll be some people that really, really like me as a person and want to engage so that they can be better and not have suicidal thoughts. And I think that itself is enough. The fact that just one person might need my support or our support. And I've said this before as well, that I'm here via SAP UK. SAP UK is our organisation, and SAP UK is there so that when I'm not available and I'm not available to chat, um, SAP UK is every day, and they're all just like me anyway. But depression is difficult no matter what age. No matter what age somebody has depression, whether it's 2 weeks long or 2 years long, it's still difficult. Anyone who's undergoing or having to fight through depression, you're absolutely amazing and well done for still being here, because the depths that it can go to are scary. And there's like different levels of depression, of how tormented that you can be. But if you have depression and you are just kind of like getting on with your day and you are kind of still persisting and still pushing yourself out there, then well done, because it is difficult. It's difficult getting up and getting ready. It's difficult brushing your hair. It's difficult washing. It's difficult cooking and supplying food for yourself. And if you have to look after somebody else as well, it's even tougher, because you have to show up regardless of what like status you're in. And I've spoke to Luke about um my depression, and he understands it, which is really, really good. Like, I'll tell him if I'm having a good day or a bad day, and he understands it. So it's educating him as well to know that it's not me and my decidings as to why I'm like this way. And I had a conversation the other day with my brother, and we were speaking, and he's like quite solitude, isolated, and depressed. And I was speaking, and he went, "It's my own fault. It's my own fault that I'm this way, because I don't do anything. I don't get up and do this, and I don't do that, and I'm not helping myself, and I'm not cooking, and I'm not doing this." And I was like, "Whoa, whoa, whoa! Wait a minute." I'm like, "So now you're telling me I'm depressed because it's my own fault?" I was like, "Absolutely not." I said, "Jay, oh, let me try and cut that out." I'm gonna have to just get him to sign something now. And yeah, so I kind of said to him, I was like, "So you're telling me that this is all my fault?" I said, "No." I said, we were raised on different grounds. Like, we didn't have someone to go to. We didn't have someone who was like making sure that we ate properly. We didn't have someone who were making sure that we were dressed properly. We didn't have this. We were literally bullied. We were like, we was, we were treated like outcasts because of everything that went on. And I said to him, "So not every child is brought up like that." And I would never, like, if I was to bring my son up, well, I've already brought my son up. If I was to bring my son up the way that I was brought up, he would be such a different person who he is today. 100%. I've brought my son up so that we talk all the time. If he's ever stressed, we talk about it. If he's ever sad, we talk about it. If I'm sad, we talk about it. Like, no matter what, we talk about it. And I've always, always, always been complimented on Luca and his vocabulary and how well he talks and how well he inputs and how well he's strong and confident, and how good he is. And the one thing that Luca has is he has a really good mum and dad for support. Like, granted, me and his dad haven't seen eye to eye over the years, but regardless of what's what, Luca has always, always, always had good support with both of us. We've both spoke to him about everything. And if Luca was to be raised how I was to be raised, he would be a different child today. He'd be completely different to who he was. But it granted, and thankfully, I've stopped that generational trauma, and I stopped with what happened when I was a child and how I was brought up, and I've changed, and I've brought my child up the way that I should have been brought up, which is with love, care, empathy, and generosity. Like, the way that I see having a child is that they're your offspring, they're you. You have to make this child a better version of you. And that's the way that I see being a parent. It's very important that the children have the correct food, that they have the correct clothing, that they have the correct support, that they have the correct like influences around them. You don't want the children to have negative or the incorrect parents, because not parents but parental support, because these children will be adults one day, and I don't want my son to have to heal from something that was because of me. I want him to be able to have his own choices in life movement. And granted, Luca, regardless of where we've been or where I've taken him or how he's seen me, he has never faltered with his mental health. He's actually always been really, really good. And even though I've not been good, and even though I've been to some dark places, I've always kind of like sheltered him from that. And he has seen me a few times where I've been upset and stuff like that, but I've kind of like hid that from him. All up until that, so now as he's older, 'cause he's 11 now. So now as he's older, he does kind of like notice more when I've had a bad day because he can see like in my eyes that I've had a bad day. Like maybe my eyes, like my soul's lost. You can see straight through to my soul or something. But regardless of that, he's a really good boy. Do you know what? I'm so lucky to have him. I am so lucky, and I will literally preach this to the end of the earth. Like, I am so lucky to have him. I love him so much. And I've literally was gifted him as uh just to show me love. Like, he's been the best person in my whole life. Like, the best person in my whole life is Luca. 100%. Followed by my dog and my cat, and I love them both, and they're my brothers. Um, and I think like I saw something before about generational trauma, and it's like stopping the generational trauma that happens where parents kind of pass down their traits and stuff like that to the children. And I think as a parent, your duty is to try and avoid these negative traits being passed over. So I was always really difficult at talking and stuff. I'm a bit difficult at talking. I think it depends what situation is like. If there's a conversation there and if it's to be spoke about, then 100% needs conversation about it. But if it's not worth it and there's no progress that's going to be made, then nah, it doesn't need a conversation. You can move on from that knowing what you know. Um, it's like, so I asked somebody not long ago if I could have a conversation with them, and it was kind of like, do I really want a conversation? Because this person's kind of like shown me enough of who they are. Like, do I want to have a conversation with this person? I don't think I do want to have a conversation with this person, no. And I think sometimes you do you are meant to have conversations with people. So I can reach out to people and ask them for conversations and like, oh, have you got a minute? And maybe they do have a minute, maybe they don't. And that's regardless, that's on them, isn't it? I've gone off again that this is nothing to do with depression. Absolutely nothing to do with depression. So I'm gonna start wrapping it up now anyway because we're on 50 minutes. And I might have to just quickly delete some bits out of here. I don't tend to listen to it at all because I haven't got time and I've got ADHD, so I'll have to listen to it and then I'll miss some. I'll have to listen to more of it and it'll just get more difficult. But I made a video. I videoed the whole lot of this one. The video won't get caught, but this potentially will do. But I think next week, I haven't got a topic. Maybe we could talk about children and suicidal thoughts, children and suicidal actions, where these stem from, how we can support children. 'Cause I've got supporting adults, but I haven't done supporting children. And on that note, I hope you all have a really nice day. And if you are struggling with anything, please do reach out. I'm always here. And so is that UK team. Okay? Peace and love. Keep it real.